No minimums and no tech, platform, or reporting fees. Plus, IBKR has no advisory team or prop trading group to compete with you for your clients. Switch to the custody solutions that work for you at ibkr.com/RIA.
From the financial capital of the world, broadcasting across the globe, this is WBDR New York, Bloomberg 1130. Now, a global news update.
Representative Adam Schiff says former President Trump's actions during 2021's Capitol riots violated the criminal statute of insurrection.
And if you look at Donald Trump's acts and you match them up against the statute, it's a pretty good match. Now, I realize that statute hasn't been used in a long time, but then when have we had a president essentially incite an attack on his own government?
Appearing on CNN State of the Union, the California Democrat explained those provisions include inciting violence against the government or giving aid and comfort to those who do. However, Schiff did not confirm which criminal charges the House Select Committee would recommend to the Justice Department. The White House COVID response coordinator is urging people to get their updated booster shots. Dr. Ashish Jha told ABC this week that 90% of the country is seeing a rise in COVID cases and hospitalizations right now.
The good news here is that we can prevent those infections from turning into serious illness if people go out and get that updated bivalent vaccine. The updated vaccine is essential for keeping people out of the hospital.
Dr. Jha says the White House is focusing their efforts on getting senior citizens vaccinated, but everyone should get a yearly booster to be safe. The mayor of El Paso, Texas, is declaring a state of emergency in response to a surge of migrants entering the city.
The reason why we're doing it is because I said from the beginning that I would call it when I felt that either our asylum seekers or our community was not safe. And I really believe that today our asylum seekers are not safe.
In a Saturday news conference, Mayor Oscar Leeser said there were hundreds and hundreds of migrants in El Paso in unsafe conditions. As the weather continues to worsen, Leeser said they would not be safe on the streets. Title 42, a Trump-era border policy that placed restrictions on asylum seekers, will be lifted on Wednesday, and federal officials expect the number of arriving migrants to sharply increase. Argentina is the 2022 World Cup winner. Argentina defeated France in an overtime thriller in Sunday's final at Lusail Stadium in Qatar. I'm Dina Kodiak.
This is Face the Nation on Bloomberg Radio.
I'm Margaret Brennan in Washington. Breaking overnight, a state of emergency is called in a Texas border city as officials brace for the end of a COVID-era rule allowing the expulsion of migrants. We'll have the latest. Border cities are overwhelmed once again by migrants seeking asylum in anticipation of the lifting of Title 42 on Wednesday. Processing centers are inundated, and the streets of El Paso are filled with migrants forced to wait in freezing temperatures. We'll talk with two House members from Texas, Republican Tony Gonzalez and Democrat Henry Cuellar, about the challenges facing local, state, and federal officials. Here in Washington, Congress is facing deadlines on a number of fronts, including funding the government and finishing up the January 6th committee investigation before the holidays. We'll speak exclusively to West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Plus, we'll talk to the White House Senior Advisor for Public Engagement, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Finally, with more than 3/4 of the nation's hospital beds at capacity, we'll check in with former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb about the viral trifecta of RSV, flu, and COVID that's crippling the country. It's all just ahead on Face the Nation. Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. As the country wraps up year-end business and prepares for the holidays, there is once again a crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border. Typically, the influx of migrants seeking a better life in the U.S. comes during the warmer weather, but a pandemic-era rule that allows migrants to be expelled on public health grounds is set to end Wednesday. That rule is called Title 42. That's putting added pressure on border cities like El Paso, Texas, and Yuma, Arizona, where states of emergency have been issued, as well as in cities like Denver and New York, where border state governors have been sending those migrants. And we begin with West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. He is in Charleston. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning, Margaret. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad you could join us. You wrote this letter to President Biden this week saying there would be a complete loss of operational control at the southern border once Title 42 ends in about 3 days. So what more can the administration be doing, and what can Congress deliver in the coming days?
Well, let me just say the border is, we have a crisis of the border. Everyone can see that. I think everyone realizes that something has to be done. The 42 needs to be extended until we can get really, truly immigration reform. Immigration reform will not happen in our country until we all come, both sides of the aisle, Democrats, Republicans, and the administration, that you have to have total border security.
So the court ordered 42 to be struck down.
I understand that the president needs to use every bit of power he has as an executive to find a way or ask for an extension. The president can basically, I think, ask for that extension. I think his administration is doing that or will do that. I sure hope they do. But we need an extension until we can get a viable answer for this. Right now, this is unattainable. This is wrong. You can't do this to the southern border. John Cornyn, my friend, senator from Texas, they're on the front lines. They're the largest border we have, state that borders Mexico, and it's unattainable.
But what can Congress deliver in terms of emergency funding? Because as we understand it, unless the Supreme Court steps in, Title 42 is going away.
Yeah, well, again, the executive order, we could pass a piece of legislation, an emergency piece of legislation, if we could all come to an agreement that basically Title 42 has to be, by law, extended and have the president sign immediately. I guess that could be done. We're going back in Monday, and it's a